We grind through like we never stop, we never stop. And one way to unravel that, of course, is to find another outlet for it. Carving out some time for yourself just makes you more effective at everything.
Welcome back to Educator University. If teaching has taken over your life and you've forgotten what it feels like to do something just for you, this episode is a reminder that it's never too late. Today I'm talking to Jeff Seckendorf, a master athlete, coach, and lifelong educator who started racing bikes in his 50s and now in his 70s holds multiple world records. Jeff's story is more than just cycling. It's about rediscovering purpose, building balance, and proving that growth doesn't stop when you change careers or hit a certain age. This conversation will remind you what's possible when you give yourself permission to begin again. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, Annie. Great to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you. I think your story really is an inspiring one for teachers, really, because sometimes they feel like they've missed their chance to try something new. What would you say to someone who thinks it's too late to start a hobby or a goal outside of their work?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And, we were talking about this before we started recording for just a second, that I'm not totally convinced that that's endemic to just teachers. I think that's probably, something that everybody goes through when they have a career they're dedicated to, because you do get so wrapped up in it and, you find yourself doing so much time that's not sort of quote billable. And I know that's endemic of high school, middle school, where there's just so much outside work to do. So really, I think it comes down to self-care. I mean, this is the same thing that happens in any world is that, I taught for many years, I taught scuba. And in our rescue courses, we always said the first rule is don't make two victims. Don't do a rescue beyond your capability. And I think that you can take that concept and apply it to what you just asked, which is take care of yourself first and don't make two victims, which means, don't fry yourself to a point where you're not effective. So to me, that means just carve out the time. You have to carve out the time. It's mental health time.
Yeah, and that really is such a powerful metaphor in a way. Not metaphor, it's actually, like you said, scuba diving. It's very powerful to think of you have to be very careful in what you're going to do in terms of a rescue. I think also there's that phrase where it's like the oxygen mask, airplane, they always say put yours on before you give it to
Oh,
help
yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
idea as well, where it's like you got to help yourself before you can help someone else. But I think it's some one thing to say that, and then I think as teachers, and again, maybe it's all professions, but teachers especially, I hear sometimes they think it's selfish. It's like, "Oh, it's selfish of me to do this for myself." What would you say to that in terms of changing maybe that perspective a little bit?
Well, I think if you're so burnt that you're useless,
Yeah.
I don't want to be cold about it, but, you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take care of your own physicality. We made up a word the other day, what is it? Mentality, all of it. It's like, you've got to take care of yourself or you're not going to be any good to the people you're trying to help. I mean, you walk into your doctor's office and, that person is 300 pounds smoking a cigarette. It's like, how can this guy help me? You know what I mean? And it's an exaggeration, but I think that's true. It's like, if you have somebody who's frazzled or stressed or overweight and unhealthy, and it's like, how that just can't be good for the people you're trying to help. So, I think if you put it in perspective, you know, consider staying healthy, fit, and both physically and mentally, as part of your billable hours. It's just part of your job.
Yeah. I'm kinda curious about your journey. I mean, you not recently, but you kinda had a change and you approached something absolutely new. For kind well, actually, I'm not sure it was absolutely new, but you started something newer later on in your life. I'm kinda curious, what gave you the confidence to just start with that new hobby or skill?
So there've been a couple of times where I've made a little pivot. So I did 35 years in the film industry, following about 10 years as a stills photographer. By the time I got to the end of that, I had one producing partner who said I spent 10 years trying to get into the film business and 10 years trying to get out. And, it just wasn't satisfying. And so, a, a bunch of things lined up and an opportunity came in front of me that said, do you want to start a scuba certification and training agency? And I'm like, yeah, why not? And I think that's the key, right? The universe throws something in front of you. You just have to say yes. You just have to try stuff. Very part-time. I built this scuba training agency. And then slowly I was able to make this easy transition from filmmaking to scuba full time. And I ended up running around the world teaching instructors for 20 years. And it turned out to be a blast. But, they don't always work. I started another little project. I do a lot of work with the Parkinson's community here in San Diego. I started a project called Cycling for Parkinson's. Could not get any traction. Put in a little bit of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy, printing, website. Couldn't get any traction. It's like, okay, that one didn't work. Let's try something else. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of look what's in front of you and see what looks like fun and just grab it.
Yeah.
Doesn't work, so what? Pivot, do it again.
Yeah. So for scuba diving, you had no previous experience, or did you have some exposure to that before
No,
you?
I was a longtime diver and I was an
Okay.
instructor. Yeah, I didn't come at
Okay.
it clean, but
Yeah.
it was one of those unique things that brought a lot of my skills together, right? It brought together the diving part that I loved, the teaching part that I loved, the curriculum development part, and the writing part, the broadcasting and creating podcasts. So it took, and I think that's an interesting point. If you're just desperate to find a hobby or some diversion from the grind, it's like, what am I good at? Well, I love to cook. I love to shop. I love to go walk in the woods. Well, somebody just gave me a book called How to Eat in the Woods. You know, I think it's awesome. Somebody just wrote a book about, staying alive on food in the woods. But you can just take the things you love and pack them together. And if you're working and it doesn't have to make money, then all the better. And if you're working and it has to make money, all the better, adds a little motivation.
Yeah. I'm curious, you kind of have chosen cycling as your passion and more recently in kind of all these things. How did you know it was the right hobby for you? Sometimes I talk to teachers are like they're not sure if it's the right hobby for them. How do you know if it's the right thing for you? Because sometimes you try things and you're not sure if it's actually the right thing?
Make you happy?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the question. Does it make you happy?
No,
Yeah.
that's the answer. That's the
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
You know,
So you're happy on a bike? Like, I'm just
my
imagining,
God,
like,
I
you
love it.
enjoy cycling for long periods of time. That's something that you enjoy.
I
Yeah.
do. I love it. As soon
Yeah.
as we're done, I'm going out for a 4-hour bike ride
Wow.
in the
Okay.
in the mountain, but in the mountain, like in this
Yeah.
most beautiful place in the world. And it's not meditation, but it's meditative, right? I'm going to ride alone today. I ride. I just like it. I was racing on cross country skis as a kid, and in upstate New York, and we were using the bike to cross train in the summer, but then it turned out, of course, that cross country ski season is like 2 months long and the bike season is 10. So what's wrong with that picture? And I switched it. And the bike became kind of primary. And it's been like 50 years now I've been riding a bike, and then started competing in my 50s. So I like it.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. I just like it. Oh, it's like dating, right? The chemistry of somebody you're dating. It's like, this person is appealing, this person's not appealing. It's like, who
Yeah.
knows why? Nobody knows why. I like bicycles. I like the mechanical and the engineering part of bikes, but I also like to ride them. And I like to stay fit, and I like, all the stuff that goes with it. I'm competitive. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it just seemed like an easy deal to do it for, 50 years and hopefully maybe another 50. I don't know. But certainly, I found something that was fun, that I liked, that was appealing. And it could be hard too. It's satisfying because it's hard.
Well, that's what I was curious about in terms of the discipline and motivation that goes into these longer bike rides that you're doing for competitive reasons or for competitions. How do you kind of keep yourself motivated? Is something just the joy of it keeps you going, or is there competition? What is it that keeps you moving?
Yeah. So, it's funny. When I was in the film business, we used to have a joke about writers, that writers, not all of them, but writers hate writing. They love having written, right? I mean, you love the result, you hate the process. And I know a lot of people like that who just want to get through it and get it done. Competition in any form can be the same. I hate racing, but I love having raced. But that's not me. What I've found is I just love the process of training, the process of getting ready, the process of doing all the mechanical, the science, the engineering, the aerodynamics, all that stuff that goes with cycling. That appeals to me too, to put the whole package together and, have a successful outcome. I love both. If I was a writer, I'd love writing and I'd love having written. I ride a bike, so I love training and I love finishing and or winning races. But you can't really have one without the other. You can't have training and not want to go to competition. And you can't have the love of competition and hate the training. So to go back to your earlier thoughts, if you're looking for something, if you're really just out there putting your head down and saying, I need to find a diversion from the grind that's my life, it's got to be both. It's got to be process and outcome that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy both, it won't work. I love eating vegetables. I hate gardening. That's not going to be my thing. My
Yeah.
wife loves to garden and loves eating vegetables, so it works really well for her. But, I just want to eat them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's that phrase, something about like the person who enjoys walking will walk farther than the person who enjoys something like about, I forget exactly the phrase, but it's something about like people who enjoy the process is more, they're going to go farther at times than the people who just enjoy the thing at the end, the competition at the end, or the reward at the end. So I think that's
Yeah,
kind of what you're referring to.
process versus outcome is another podcast
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
and we'd need like 3 hours because, there's so much to that, dealing with training for process versus training for outcome. And I think it took me many, many years to balance both, you know, because if you train for process and don't care about the outcome event is kind of a cop out. Well, if I don't win, it doesn't matter because I don't really care anyway. I'm just training because I like the process. But if you get that, in a healthier, balanced way, it becomes, well, I want the outcome, and that helps drive the training, which I enjoy also.
It really is a balance, it sounds like, in
Complete
a way.
balance. And if you're off balance, if you're scrounging around for something cool to do and you're off balance on that, and you either love to write but hate the product or love, the product and hate the writing, then it's just not going to sustain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm finding that with my own self. I guess this topic is kind of timely for me because I started this podcast with the interest of I enjoy talking to people. And so it's like the process is fun for me and the product. Having people listen and be part of
Yeah.
this journey is part of it. So I think that
Yeah.
that's why this conversation I wanted to really bring up is because I think I talk to colleagues and they don't have something on the side sometimes. They're so just focused. And I think it does bring something into your life to have kind of something that you can focus on and be, like I said, just to make you happy,
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Yeah, I think, I'm kinda curious now, I'm kinda talking about bikes with you. I'm curious, let's say someone's listening right now and they're like, "Maybe biking could be my hobby, maybe cycling could be my hobby." Could you give some ideas and, like, tips that you'd have for them in terms of starting maybe this hobby for themselves?
Go for a ride.
Okay.
Just
Any
go
bike?
for a bike ride.
I don't know if I'm like, any bike will
Oh,
work or
yeah. So
anywhere?
cycling's funny because, you have to be connected to your bicycle.
Yeah.
Right? There are points of contact, right? 2 feet, 2 hands, and a butt. And if any of those are uncomfortable, it's very easy to say, oh, cycling's not for me. My butt hurts, my hands go numb or something like that. I would say if somebody wants to pursue cycling, as a thing, then for sure get a bike that fits, which means if you go to Craigslist and get a bike, you have to take that to someone and get you fit on it and get a saddle that fits. I do these long rides, these like 6-hour competition rides, and the saddle that's on my bike has no padding, right? It's a piece of carbon with a piece of leather over it, and it works perfectly because it fits, right? Padding is a gasket. A gasket is designed, it's foam, right? It's designed to make two parts that don't fit together fit together. So if somebody tries to put you on a bike and says, well, the saddle doesn't fit, but we'll make it thicker with foam, then you're just trying to make two parts that don't fit. So spend the time to get a great saddle, spend the time to get a proper bike fit, and then go have fun.
In terms of, like, routes, is there a suggestion in terms of, like, you would say, is there, like, things to look at in terms of how to plan your route?
Uh, if you're riding on the road, traffic, of course, is a big
Mhm.
thing. I've been riding in traffic for ever, so I don't really care. But with the advent of this whole community of gravel bikes, which is kind of a cross between road riding and mountain biking, it's pretty cool because you can find all these fire roads and these wide trails and still ride on pavement on a thing called a gravel bike, which it's a wonderful way to get away from cars, have fun, be safe, and go see really cool stuff. The bikes will go anywhere. So I think that's a really, really good way to start.
Yeah, it's a great insight. Is there a community of people like nationwide that people can connect to in terms of, or are they kind of more like local little spots, people, bikers
Yeah,
jumping
it's
together?
local. Just
Okay.
it's one of the few things Facebook is good for, right?
Yeah.
Just find your local bike group.
I grew up in Chicago area and I have memories of on Sunday morning, I would go like be driving and I'd see a bunch of people on their bikes cycling together. Like
Yeah,
we're like
yeah,
15 people just
yeah.
doing a big cycle together. Do you do that in your free time as well? Okay.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. We have a group we ride with Saturdays. I ride on the velodrome a lot. I teach track cycling, and we do a Friday night ride there with like 50 people on a track, a small oval. It's really fun. There's a million things you can do with anything, you know. My thing happens to be cycling, if you could be anything, walking, running, rowing. There's a huge rowing community in San Diego. Again, it doesn't appeal to me because they start at like 4:30 in the morning, but you know, it's another great option. There's rowing, sculling in almost every community. Chicago has all those rivers and those little inlets and things. There's huge rowing communities there. So it's just what's fun. It keeps coming back. What's fun?
Yeah, it's a powerful message thinking about what's fun, and it's like you said, sometimes you're doing it for another income, or sometimes you're just doing it for fun. It's a hobby, something to help you kind of balance out your life. I'm kind of curious. I mean, you, from what I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you actually have a full-time job as well as cycling. I'm kind of curious how you keep that, or at the time, how do you keep the balance of those things? How do you keep yourself, yeah, balanced?
Yeah, I do have a full-time job. I'm the director of operations at the Parkinson's Association in San Diego, which, I was involved in this community. I don't have Parkinson's, but I know a million people who do. I do content and run events and do educational programming for them. And I've been able to find a job that affords me a ton of flexibility, right? There's no office, nobody's counting hours. As long as the work gets done, it gets done. And so, like I said, I'm gonna finish this thing. I'm gonna go out for a big long ride and then come back and, you know, I just adjust my life to make it all fit together, and it's prioritized. And my priority is on fun. It sounds so like Pollyanna, but it really isn't. If it's fun, I'll do it. If it's not fun, I'm not interested. And my job is fun, and cycling is fun, and I coach athletes, and that's fun. Everything, right? I have grandkids, they're fun. I have a wife, she's fun. It's like, just make it fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kind of are just touching on that idea of coaching. I think you talked earlier about teaching educators, things like that. So along with your cycling passion and hobby, you've also found ways to kind of coach and teach people as well, whether it's scuba diving or cycling. Do you want to share a little bit about that experience for educators listening?
Yeah, that's again by accident that became a big part of each iteration of my career. So in the film industry, I got wrapped up in a workshop program, sort of a high-end workshop program, and I spent like 25 years teaching courses and developing curriculum and running classes and so on. And the education part of filmmaking became a big thing for me. And then, of course, I had all that experience and skill set. And then when I got into the scuba thing, I had the filmmaking thing, the education part, the curriculum development part. So it was really easy to form this scuba education company. And then with coaching, it just became the next obvious thing. I love riding a bike. I took a class at our velodrome. I learned how to ride on the track, and then I started assisting on those classes, and then I started teaching. Then I never really looked back on that. I mean, it's great. I happen to have a velodrome 20 minutes from my house, so it's easy. But it's also a really important aspect of anything I'm doing, which is to create a way to give back a little bit and to bring people into the fun, the joy that I see in it. So I've always had this little teaching element. And again, we're talking to teachers. So, you're skilled at this. When you find the great thing, or if you have the great thing that makes you happy, sharing it's amazing. Just share it. Just do a workshop, do podcasts, do what you're doing, right? Start a podcast on who knows what. I don't know, you know, Greek literature, whatever you like. Just something, do something.
Yeah, I think giving us just, like, listening, hopefully, it's, like, giving permission to be like, "Just go for it," and like you said, there's not s like, I think teachers are not all, but many are very type A personality, and they have this pressure on themselves, and I'm just like sometimes I'm just like, "Just relax, just try to have some fun, try to find something that you enjoy, and maybe release a little bit of that pressure off yourself."
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
permission, you can go to therapy and have somebody tell you to give yourself permission to do something, or you can just do it.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm kinda curious, you mentioned a little bit about the balance. How do you find I mean, you kinda mentioned that you've created a life that allows you the balance. Do you have a rhythm? Do you create, like, schedules or rhythms for yourself that help you with that, that teachers could potentially, like, understand or learn from in terms of building this goal outside of work? And, yeah, is that part of your teaching as well?
Yeah. I think it's part of everybody's life,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I have a pretty flexible schedule, but I still have commitments and meetings and things and stuff and life and all that going on. In some ways, it might be easier if you have a fixed schedule, right? You're done at 3. Okay, well, 3 to 4, I'm at a school. It's got a gym, it's got a pool, it's got a track, it's got this. Let's just go do something, right? And, if you're finishing up a day of work and you've got 2 more hours to do at home, that 2 hours will be much more effective if you stop for an hour and go do something fun, or go do something physical or something like that. But I think, we grind through, like, we never stop, we never stop, we never stop. And especially if your job makes you stressed, I don't want to go so far as to say, well, if I hate my job, but if you hate the stress, then one way to unravel that, of course, is to find another outlet for it. So, I mean, for me, it's all about, physical activity. Could be reading, could be writing, could be sitting on a mountain meditating, could be whatever, doesn't matter. But, get carving out some time for yourself, some me time, it just makes you more effective at everything. I think that's, I keep coming back to that. It's like you can go down a rabbit hole of a grind. And if you just do a little bit to take care of yourself, the grind can be fun.
Yeah, it comes back to our very initial part of the conversation talking about that scuba diving lesson about not making 2 victims, finding
Yeah.
ways to really fill yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself for what you bring to your job or your family or
Yeah.
your life in general.
And your kids, if you're teaching.
Yeah, yeah, your students for sure. I'm kinda curious, you've done a lot, you do a lot. You've, really accomplished with the cycling and scuba diving, and you've had quite an extensive career. What's next for you? I'm curious, is there a new goal or adventure or challenge you're going for, and what are some of the things you're using to help accomplish that goal?
I can answer that for me. I don't know how helpful it's going to be for anybody else, because I'm really happy with these 3 or 4 lanes that I have going on right now, right?
Yeah,
Work, cycling, coaching, family.
yeah,
So, I mean, each of those continues to grow individually, right? I still competing on the bike. I've got the World 6 Hour Time Trial Championships coming up in 2 weeks. We have grandkids who are like 7 and 9. So that changes every year because they get funnier and weirder and more fun to be around. Work changes. I just allow these lanes to be satisfying where they are, and know that there's enough chaos being thrown at me at least once or twice a day to have fun, just to
yeah,
have fun. Yeah.
yeah. As we finish up the conversation here, are there any final thoughts that we haven't covered that you wanna share with the educators that haven't been kind of touched on in this conversation?
I mean, I think we've narrowed in on kind of my thing, which is easy to say and hard to do, right? Go have fun. I think the most important thing for me is to never be afraid to pivot. Never be afraid to try something and have it not work. I mean, you read all these, like, I've read a gazillion self-help books, but, it's all like, you know, I wrote a manuscript, I took it to 38 publishers, and then the 39th said yes, right? We've heard this story. I've started 6 companies, the first 5 went broke. I heard somebody once stand up and say, I've been married 5 times, or I've been married 4 times, and I'm engaged for the 5th time, and I think this time I'm just going to break up with her, but I'll buy her a house. Like, it's like you just got to be able to pivot. So, I think that's the most important thing is try it, doesn't work, untry it. We always say you can't unsee things, but you can definitely untry things. And I think, not being afraid to fail makes your chance of success that much higher, or it makes your pivot that much faster. Cycling's not for everybody, right? You get on a bike, you hate it, don't force it. I mean, in scuba, we saw it all the time, right? Somebody would come in with their partner, or their spouse. I've wanted to learn to dive my whole life, and I talked my wife into it, or I talked my husband into it, or I talked my boyfriend into it. And that's just a train wreck from the very beginning. Because once somebody decides they don't want to be there, the whole thing's over. So I can't tell you how many people I sent out the door. It's like, look, this is not for you. Put the gear on eBay. Yeah. So that's my big thing is try it. Don't be afraid to pivot, and you don't have to be successful. I race a bike. I'm not successful all the time. Sometimes I am. I just set 4 world records on the bike in my new age group, and that's great, but, going out for a competition in 2 weeks, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All I know is that each day that I step up like that, I just do my best. And if I do my best, then I've had a successful race, regardless of where I sit on a podium or not. So pivot.
Yeah. I
Pivot
love that.
proudly. Yeah, pivot proudly.
Pivot proudly. I love that. Giving us just kind of that reminder that we can pivot and finding
Yeah,
success looks
yeah,
different for each person. I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We have some final quick questions for you, for the audience to get to know you a little better. You can answer in as short or as long as you want. There's just 4 of them here. The first one is your favorite lunch,
Sushi,
best behavior management or emotional regulation tip.
bike ride.
Love that. A teacher that made a difference in your life.
Oof. I used to live next door to Leonard Cohen.
Wow.
So yeah, Leonard.
Awesome. Last lesson you taught.
The last lesson I taught,
Yeah.
my God, I don't know. It feels like every day I'm on something.
Yeah.
We had a huge conference last Friday, 4 days ago, and with 20 speakers, and I did a talk on mindfulness and meditation for 400 people.
Wow.
So
Wow, yeah.
yeah.
So important to talk about that stuff. Yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on today. Just the value you brought in terms of helping teachers find their pivots and feeling confident to pivot proudly and thinking about hobbies and even introducing them maybe to cycling. Maybe we'll get some cyclers off of this
Who knows?
this,
If you
this
need a coach,
podcast.
call me. I
Yeah.
coach athletes at all levels.
Yeah, geez. I mean, you're just talking about world records. It's very impressive. I'm not very familiar with that, but it sounds very impressive. So before we get off here, though, where can my audience find you? And I will link it right below this video as well.
Probably the easiest URL is jeffscoaching.com. And
Awesome.
that
And
will
I will
take you
link
to
that
my main
below.
site. Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.